I remember the day Olivia sneered at me, calling me too broke to fund her opulent tastes. My chest burned with embarrassment, though I'd always done everything to support her lifestyle. We had met at a charity gala, ironically enough, where she seemed enthralled by my philanthropic side. Over time, I financed spa trips, fancy dinners, and extravagant vacations, believing her appreciation matched my generosity. But gradually, I noticed her condescending remarks about our future. She spoke of homes I couldn't afford, cars beyond my reach. Still, I ignored the warning signs, clinging to the illusion that love trumped money. One evening, we attended a high-end fashion show, invited by a designer friend of hers. Olivia sauntered around, boasting about pricey outfits she'd soon own. I tried to smile, though discomfort gnawed inside me. During a casual conversation with an investor, she let slip that I lacked sufficient funds for her lavish goals. My cheeks burned as I realized how little respect she truly held for me. In that moment, I decided I'd had enough. For too long, I'd believed my dedication outshone any monetary shortfall. But her scornful words echoed in my mind, leaving me feeling betrayed and humiliated. That night, as we drove home in tense silence, her phone buzzed with messages. I glimpsed the screen, noticing flirtatious texts from some wealthy acquaintance she'd met. Fury coiled inside me, but I said nothing. Arriving at our apartment, she complained about the meager size, whining that she deserved a penthouse. My mind replayed every instance of her belittling my efforts. Determination replaced my hurt. If she believed I couldn't measure up financially, I'd show her a different path. I decided to freeze all shared accounts that evening, effectively placing our luxurious monthly expenses on hold, a sudden, unexpected wake-up call. In the morning, she discovered her favorite salon appointment was cancelled due to a declined payment. Confusion morphed into anger as she confronted me, demanding an explanation. I calmly stated that I needed to reassess our finances. Her face twisted in outrage, accusing me of sabotaging her lifestyle out of spite. I merely shrugged, reminding her of those cutting remarks about my lack of means. She scoffed, insisting she'd find support elsewhere. That statement sealed my resolve. If my contributions meant so little, I'd end them entirely. Let her chase the high life without the cushion and security I'd provided. That afternoon, I contacted my bank, requesting closure of joint credit lines and halting automatic payments. I texted her to notify she'd now be handling every bill. She erupted with furious messages, claiming I couldn't just walk away from prior obligations. I reminded her that those obligations were mine alone only if she honored our partnership. Instead, she labeled me inadequate. Therefore, I saw no reason to continue subsidizing her whims. She threatened to leave, certain I'd cave to her demands. Rather than plead, I urged her to do what she must. My decision was final, and absolutely, utterly unwavering. Within days, the repercussions of my financial withdrawal slammed into her life. Her beloved spa memberships lapsed, the gym cancelled her VIP access, and her favorite boutique refused further store credit. Meanwhile, I observed quietly, focusing on my own well-being. I revisited old friends, finding solace in simpler pleasures. My phone buzzed endlessly with her complaints, but I rarely responded. Word spread among her social circle that she'd lost her benefactor. Some acquaintances vanished overnight, uninterested in her if she wasn't a guaranteed ticket to lavish outings. This reality check pricked her ego more than any argument or outburst could. One afternoon, she stormed into my workplace, demanding I restore her funds. Colleagues watched in shock as she hurled accusations, claiming I'd ruined her reputation. I maintained composure, pointing out her repeated insults about my financial standing. If I was too broke, why should my money matter? Her face flushed, and she sputtered defenses. Eventually, security intervened, escorting her out. My boss, sympathetic, offered me the rest of the day off. I drove home, heart pounding. The confrontation rattled me, but it also reaffirmed that I'd chosen the right path. No longer would I ever sacrifice self-respect for her approval. Returning home, I found messages from her mother, pleading that I reconsider for the sake of love. I politely responded, clarifying that love shouldn't revolve around money. Her mother insisted Olivia was simply accustomed to a certain standard of living, and that I shouldn't punish her. But I refused to budge. She had publicly disregarded my worth, so I saw no reason to continue funding her desires. If that made me heartless in their eyes, so be it. The next day, Olivia arrived in tears, claiming she'd changed her mind, that she needed me back. Yet I recognized merely desperation. She apologized repeatedly, weaving tales of confusion and regret. I listened, arms crossed, as she professed a sudden appreciation for my generosity. Yet her eyes kept darting to my wallet on the table, betraying her true motive. When I asked if she truly wanted me or just the money, her silence spoke louder than any denial. She tried to pivot, claiming we could be a power couple, but I'd lost faith in her sincerity. Gently, I reminded her how she'd belittled me in front of others, how she'd flaunted her desire for wealth over genuine partnership. She simply wept quietly. I told her I needed space to think. She pleaded for immediate reconciliation, but I refused. Over the following week, I focused on my work, ignoring her constant texts. Mutual friends inquired about our situation, to which I gave a measured summary. She declared me too broke, so I withdrew all support. Some friends criticized me for being harsh, while others applauded my stance. Meanwhile, Olivia tried everything: public apologies on social media, tearful calls, even flowers delivered to my office. Each gesture felt hollow, overshadowed by her blatant gold digging. Eventually, I blocked her number, seeking peace from the drama. Amid this turmoil, an unexpected opportunity arose. A startup I'd invested in announced promising results, poised for significant returns. The timing felt ironic. Just when Olivia wrote me off as worthless, my finances improved. I poured energy into nurturing that venture, channeling frustration into productivity. Late nights at the office replaced restless nights over her betrayal. The more I immersed myself in building a stable future, the more I realized how her negativity had weighed me down. Freed from that burden, my ambition soared. I recognized that genuine relationships shouldn't revolve around wealth but mutual growth and respect. With the startup's success came an unanticipated windfall. My shares skyrocketed in value, opening doors to a lifestyle I'd previously only imagined. Yet, I felt hesitant to broadcast this development. Would people flock to me for money, just as Olivia had? I decided to keep the news quiet, confiding only in close friends. This newfound prosperity allowed me to settle old debts, support charitable causes, and plan carefully for the future. Where Olivia once ridiculed me, I now thrived without her. Ironically, I realized that her departure was the best thing that could have happened to me. One evening, I scrolled through social media, spotting Olivia's name tagged in a friend's post. She appeared at a lavish party, wearing a borrowed gown, her smile strained. Curious, I clicked through photos. It seemed she was attempting to maintain appearances, mingling with affluent crowds. Yet I noticed subtle desperation in her eyes, as though she fought to reclaim the status she'd lost. A pang of pity hit me, but I quickly reminded myself of the cruelty she'd shown. Perhaps she still hunted for someone else to foot her bills. It was no longer my concern. Then, out of the blue, she sent me an apology email. She claimed to have realized her mistakes, admitting she had been superficial. She referenced my rumored financial upswing, hinting that she'd heard about my successes. Instantly, I recognized her pattern: whenever money dangled, she reappeared. This time, however, I refused to be lured back. I composed a polite but firm response, acknowledging her apology but declining any reunion. The sense of liberation felt immense. For too long, her presence had overshadowed my self-worth. Now, I stood on solid ground, unafraid to close the door on her for good. Meanwhile, I discovered new hobbies, cooking elaborate recipes, painting cityscapes, and exploring local hiking trails. Each pursuit reminded me of life's simpler joys, aspects I'd once neglected to fund Olivia's extravagant tastes. My circle of friends expanded beyond shallow acquaintances, fostering deeper connections. They appreciated me for who I was, not for what I provided. This shift in perspective felt refreshing. No longer tethered to her demands, I carved out a life of genuine fulfillment. I realized that wealth alone couldn't buy happiness, but financial autonomy sure helped me explore passions without the draining criticisms of a materialistic partner. Occasionally, I'd hear rumors that Olivia was dating another wealthy individual. Each time, the relationship fizzled. Her social media brimmed with contrived happiness, fancy dinners or exotic trips, yet always overshadowed by a hollow undertone. People whispered that she never truly connected on an emotional level, focusing solely on bank balances. Observing from afar, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Relief that I'd escaped her cycle of greed, sadness that she chose emptiness over real affection. However, it wasn't my responsibility to save her. She'd chosen her path, I'd found mine, one that promised authenticity. Months passed, and my professional success cemented. I purchased a modest but comfortable home, inviting close friends for a housewarming. Over laughter and good food, they toasted my resilience. Nobody flaunted labels or judged the brand of my furniture. Freed from the need to impress, I valued experiences over possessions. When someone asked about Olivia, I simply shrugged, stating I'd moved on. It felt good to speak those words without bitterness. I'd gained more than financial stability, I'd regained my self-esteem. The memory of her sneer, calling me too broke, now felt like a stepping stone to growth. During this period, an old college friend, Mia, re-entered my life. We'd lost touch years ago. Reconnecting felt effortless, like finding a missing puzzle piece. Mia was down to earth, with aspirations that weren't dictated by price tags. I shared my story, admitting how Olivia's scornful attitude once eroded my confidence. Mia listened empathetically, then offered a simple truth: real partnership is about lifting each other up, not draining resources. Her words struck home. Unlike Olivia, Mia never asked about my net worth. Instead, she inquired about my dreams, passions, and concerns. I sensed genuine care, something I'd sorely missed. As Mia and I grew closer, I marveled at our honest communication. We split dinner bills or cooked together, never fussing over cost. When I surprised her with small gifts, she appreciated the thought, not the price tag. This contrasted sharply with Olivia's constant demands for bigger, shinier tokens. I found myself smiling more, relieved that money was no longer a source of conflict. Mia valued ambition, but not greed. Slowly, my heart mended. The resentment Olivia instilled faded, replaced by a renewed belief that love could exist without financial exploitation. Mia's warmth nurtured hope within me again. One weekend, Mia and I attended a community fundraiser. To my surprise, Olivia appeared, clinging to the arm of a businessman I recognized from the tabloids. She wore an extravagant dress, flashing forced smiles at cameras. Spotting me, her face flickered with shock, then uncertainty. I introduced Mia politely, noticing Olivia's eyes flick over my attire, scanning for signs of wealth. Instead of bitterness, I felt calm. She murmured a hollow greeting, trying to maintain composure. When Mia excused herself to chat with organizers, Olivia cornered me, questioning if we could talk privately. I merely shook my head. She insisted it was urgent, so I obliged briefly. We stepped aside, where she offered a meager apology for past behavior. Then, without subtlety, she asked if my financial fortunes had improved further. Her calculating gaze reminded me of old scars. I answered vaguely, unwilling to satisfy her curiosity. She pressed on, hinting she'd made mistakes and regretted losing me. I recognized the manipulative undertone, the way she angled for information about my wallet. Gently but firmly, I told her I'd moved on. Her expression hardened, tears threatening to surface, but I no longer wavered under her emotional theatrics. As we parted ways, she whispered that I'd never find someone like her again. I fought a grin, thinking, thank heaven for that. Mia returned, noticing my tension. I explained everything, and she wrapped me in a reassuring hug. The contrast between Mia's genuine affection and Olivia's transactional approach was stark. I realized I felt no anger, only relief. My journey had brought me to a place of clarity. Financial independence was nice, but emotional freedom from Olivia's manipulative grasp was priceless. Later, we left the event hand in hand, my heart feeling light as a feather. In the following weeks, Mia and I made our bond official, dating openly. We found joy in simple activities. Picnics, movie nights, cooking experiments. Meanwhile, the startup I'd invested in approached its final funding round, projecting significant profit. My finances steadily climbed, though I kept a low profile. Freed from Olivia's pressure, I directed resources toward causes I believed in, like educational programs for underprivileged kids. The gratification of giving back exceeded any fleeting luxury purchase. Each day reinforced the lesson that money should serve meaningful goals, not overshadow values. Mia supported these endeavors wholeheartedly, matching my enthusiasm. Eventually, my investment paid off in a big way. The startup's success soared beyond forecasts, granting me a substantial return. Friends congratulated me, urging extravagant celebrations. Instead, I hosted a humble gathering at my new home, grateful for the support of people who never judged my bank balance. Mia stood by my side, proud not of my wealth, but of my perseverance. Looking around that night, I felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. I'd reclaimed every penny I once funneled into a toxic relationship, redirecting it toward genuine connections, philanthropic initiatives, and personal growth. This triumph felt undeniably sweet. News traveled quickly, and soon enough, Olivia learned of my impressive windfall. True to form, she tried calling repeatedly, leaving voicemails about how we'd always been meant for each other. She recited memories of our earliest dates, conveniently forgetting her disdainful remarks. I pressed delete each time, refusing to reopen that chapter. Her attempts grew increasingly desperate: texts, social media DMs, even a letter delivered to my mailbox. Each message hinted at regrets, flattery, or hopes for reconciliation. But I saw through it all. She hadn't changed. She only craved a piece of my newfound fortune. I stayed resolute. One rainy afternoon, I returned from errands to find her waiting on my porch, drenched. She wore a sorrowful expression, claiming she had nowhere else to go. My first instinct was concern, but memories of her manipulations tempered my sympathy. Calmly, I suggested she contact her wealthy acquaintances. She admitted they'd vanished when she couldn't afford the lifestyle anymore. Her mascara streaked as she pleaded for forgiveness, insisting she'd learned humility. But her eyes betrayed that same opportunistic gleam. Gently, I told her my life had moved on. She erupted in tears, cursing me for abandoning her in despair. Watching her meltdown in the rain, I experienced a twinge of sadness. Despite everything, I once cared for this woman. Yet pity couldn't erase the pain she'd inflicted. She raged about my changed circumstances, how I now possessed the means to fulfill her dreams if I so desired. Instead of fueling her fantasy, I offered polite sympathy and closed my door. Her screams pierced the air briefly, then silence fell. Through the window, I saw her vanish into the storm. My heart pounded, relief mixing with sorrow. I'd refused to let her rewrite history just because fortune now favored me. Days later, I confided in Mia about Olivia's visit. She listened intently, never pressuring me for details of my finances. I marveled at the contrast between them. Mia's support felt unconditional, she never demanded grand gestures. We planned a short getaway to clear our minds, opting for a cozy cabin by the lake. The trip provided a much-needed escape from city chaos, letting us reconnect with nature. We cooked simple meals, hiked scenic trails, and laughed under starlit skies. This ordinary, peaceful bonding reminded me how happiness thrived when expectations stayed grounded in respect and understanding. Upon returning home, I discovered another letter from Olivia. This one lacked the usual flattery. Instead, it contained bitterness, accusing me of heartlessness. She claimed I'd robbed her of stability, ignoring the fact that she'd undermined our relationship first. She demanded restitution for emotional distress, threatening legal action. I was stunned by her audacity. Fortunately, I'd carefully documented every expense I'd covered and every instance of her hostility. My lawyer assured me her claims would fall flat in court. Olivia had long forfeited any moral high ground. Her letter only reinforced my conviction to keep forging ahead. To protect myself, I prepared a legal response, detailing how I'd fully supported her while she dismissed me as inadequate. My lawyer suggested we remain firm but polite, offering no further concessions. When I mailed the letter, I felt a pang of finality. This was the official ending to a toxic saga. Meanwhile, I delved deeper into philanthropic work, donating to local shelters and sponsoring scholarships for students in need. Mia joined me in these efforts, brightening every event with her genuine compassion. This sense of purpose eclipsed any negativity Olivia hurled my way, shielding me from her malice. Over the next month, no lawsuits materialized. Instead, rumors spread that Olivia had left town, chasing another potential benefactor. Relieved, I hoped she'd find whatever she sought, though part of me doubted she'd ever be satisfied chasing material illusions. Freed from her looming presence, my life felt lighter. With the legal threats behind me, I focused on personal growth. My career flourished, my friendships deepened, and my relationship with Mia blossomed. We often reflected on how money could either corrupt or empower people. In our case, it opened avenues for helping others, building trust, and living with integrity. One sunny afternoon, Mia and I strolled through a neighborhood market. Vendors sold handcrafted goods, homemade pastries, and local artwork. The atmosphere felt welcoming, a celebration of communal spirit. Suddenly, we encountered a small charity stall raising funds for underprivileged families. Mia and I exchanged glances, deciding spontaneously to match the donations received that day. The volunteers beamed at our generosity. Hand in hand, we saw how finances could create meaningful change if wielded kindly. I contrasted that with the emptiness I'd felt when catering to Olivia's endless cravings for status symbols. This path we now walked felt true. As word of my philanthropy grew, local organizations reached out with invitations. I carefully vetted each request, aiming to support causes aligned with my values. My phone rang less with shallow acquaintances and more with dedicated community leaders seeking genuine partnerships. The shift was heartening, reminding me that wealth wasn't inherently evil, it was a tool, shaped by intention. Meanwhile, Olivia's memory faded, overshadowed by purposeful pursuits. Mia encouraged me to keep exploring charitable initiatives, offering help wherever possible. Each day, I discovered new ways to give back, realizing I'd repurposed the funds once wasted on empty extravagance. Still, I sometimes recalled the sting of Olivia's words, "You're too broke for my lifestyle." Her mocking tone haunted me on quiet nights. But instead of fueling bitterness, I used it as motivation. I'd proven her wrong, not by amassing wealth for vengeance, but by demonstrating that character triumphed over greed. My blossoming success, anchored in hard work and empathy, redefined richness in my eyes. Surrounded by supportive friends, a loving partner, and fulfilling endeavors, I saw that real richness stemmed from meaningful connections and generosity. She had believed money alone guaranteed happiness. I found happiness beyond her scope. As the year progressed, Mia and I decided to co-found a small foundation aimed at educational grants for aspiring students. Our combined efforts melded seamlessly, her organizational skills complementing my financial planning. Whenever doubts surfaced, I remembered how far I'd come since severing ties with Olivia. The foundation's first scholarship recipients radiated gratitude, fueling our dedication. Watching these young minds flourish affirmed our mission. Meanwhile, my personal life stabilized, each new day overshadowing old regrets. I realized that everything I'd endured had paved the way for this sense of purpose. Indeed, adversity had shaped my destiny for the better. Amid the steady progress, a random message arrived from an unrecognized number. Instinct told me it was Olivia. Curiosity overcame caution, and I opened it. She claimed she'd changed, that life had taught her harsh lessons. She wanted one last chance to talk, promising no hidden motives. My instincts screamed otherwise. Still, a small voice urged me to hear her out. Perhaps closure required a final conversation. Mia, understanding my turmoil, supported whichever choice I made. Torn, I contemplated that meeting. If genuine, it could provide closure. If manipulative, I'd walk away again, stronger in my resolve. In the end, I arranged to meet Olivia in a public cafe, ensuring no illusions of romance. She arrived looking subdued, a shadow of her previous glamour. Her eyes flicked around nervously before settling on me. Softly, she began recounting the hardships she'd faced after losing financial backing. She admitted to chasing empty status symbols, acknowledging how it cost her real relationships. For a moment, my heart softened. People could change, right? She concluded by asking if I'd ever consider reuniting. Her contrite tone wavered, though, when she mentioned sharing resources again. My guard immediately shot up. Exhaling slowly, I told her I'd forgiven her cruelty in spirit, but that didn't mean I'd welcome her back. She bristled at my refusal, tears lining her eyes. She insisted she was genuine, that she'd learned her lesson. But the telling phrase, sharing resources, revealed her priorities. She tried to conjure memories of our early days, painting them as idyllic. I responded calmly, reminding her that real love respects, not exploits. She flared in anger, calling me cold. I stood, politely ending the conversation. My heart pounded, yet I felt relief. I'd confronted her final plea without succumbing. She chased after me outside, raising her voice about how I'd changed too. I didn't deny it. Change was natural, especially after enduring heartbreak and rebuilding a healthier life. She hurled accusations that I'd found fortune, then abandoned her. I retorted that she'd abandoned me emotionally long before I cut off the money. At that, she fell silent, tears streaking her cheeks. A pang of empathy stirred, but I remembered Mia waiting at home, a symbol of genuine partnership. With a heavy sigh, I walked away for good. Olivia's echoing sobs faded behind me, sealing that chapter forever. Driving home, I wrestled with conflicting emotions. Part of me pitied Olivia's self-inflicted downfall, but I refused to let guilt overshadow my progress. Stepping into the warmth of my house, Mia greeted me with concern. I explained the encounter. She listened attentively, then gently reminded me I wasn't responsible for Olivia's choices. Our conversation shifted to happier topics, our upcoming foundation fundraiser, an anniversary trip we planned. In that moment, I felt immense gratitude for a partner who valued compassion over greed. The stark contrast to Olivia reaffirmed I'd made the right decisions, reclaiming every penny once wasted. In time, stories of Olivia's exploits dwindled. Occasionally, a mutual acquaintance mentioned spotting her in precarious circumstances. I wished her no harm, but I couldn't rescue someone determined to measure worth by wealth. Meanwhile, my philanthropic endeavors flourished. The foundation grew, awarding scholarships that changed countless lives. My personal finances continued thriving, and Mia and I considered merging households. We took each step carefully, sharing dreams, budgeting together, ensuring open communication. The sense of mutual respect far outshone the toxic dynamic I once endured. Indeed, I'd gone from too broke in one woman's eyes to richly fulfilled in my own. Eventually, Mia and I planned a modest engagement celebration. Close friends and supportive relatives gathered in a small garden, brimming with well wishes. Toasts revolved around love, loyalty, and the resilience that brought us here. I looked into Mia's eyes, seeing sincerity, not avarice. She loved me for who I was, not my bank account. My heart swelled, recalling how different things were with Olivia. The painful lessons shaped me into a stronger, wiser person. Clinking glasses with dear ones, I reveled in genuine companionship. Money had become a tool for good, not a chain to appease someone's endless greed. Over the following months, wedding preparations proceeded smoothly, free from drama or extravagant demands. Mia and I selected a cozy venue that reflected our personalities rather than brandishing opulence. Our families supported each step, seeing how content we were. I occasionally had nightmares of Olivia crashing the ceremony, but Mia laughed them off, confident we'd handle any hiccup. My life felt balanced at last, anchored in mutual respect. Each day, the memory of Olivia's scorn faded, replaced by gratitude for the path it spurred me to take. I realized that adversity could birth strength if approached with courage. The wedding day arrived, bathed in sunshine and heartfelt joy. As Mia walked down the aisle, radiant and poised, my chest filled with indescribable warmth. In front of loved ones, we exchanged vows emphasizing partnership, trust, and compassion. Applause erupted when we sealed our promise with a tender kiss. Later, at the reception, friends shared how they'd witnessed my transformation from a man overshadowed by a demanding partner to someone glowing with self-assurance. I smiled, acknowledging their praise. The vow to never again compromise my dignity felt validated. Together, Mia and I stepped forward as equal halves of something beautiful. That evening, beneath the soft glow of fairy lights, Mia and I danced slowly, arms entwined. My mind drifted briefly to Olivia's biting words, calling me too broke for her lifestyle. Yet here I stood, newlywed, financially stable, and genuinely happy. Every penny I'd poured into that toxic relationship had been reclaimed, repurposed, and invested into a better life. I felt no rage, only relief that I hadn't remained chained to her shallow demands. In Mia's embrace, I recognized how deeply love flourished when nurtured by mutual respect, not greed. Free at last, I savored the life I'd built.